Hello everyone. Today's topic is about human capital management. So these are the intended learning outcomes. So on successful completion of this lesson, you should be able to define human capital management and also discuss the nature of human capital management and also explain aim of human capital management, identify the elements of human capital, discuss human capital measurement, explore human capital reporting of organizations, and finally analyze the implications of human capital management. What is human capital management? So in simple terms, capital refers to the economic value. So any organization has a capital. Basically, we identify capital in monetary terms, the amount invested by a particular organization. So in terms of human capital perspective, capital refers to the economic value which employees can bring to an organization. So therefore, human competencies, their knowledge, skills, has a particular economic value. So therefore, human capital is a way of looking at people that is called human capital approach to human resources. So if you look at the second bullet point, you can further understand this concept. Employees deliver economic value through their education, skills and expertise, personal values and beliefs, networks and connections, and their physical and mental health. So this bullet point means that human capital has some important components. What are the components? People's education, their skills, expertise, their personal values and beliefs, networks and connections, and their physical and mental health. Now, for example, if a particular employee is physically and mentally fit for the job, that's also the capital to the organization. So therefore, from human capital perspective, we identify people as part of organization's capital. So here you can see some definitions or simple explanations for human capital. People possess innate abilities, behaviors and personal time. These elements make up human capital. In other words, the currency people bring to invest in their jobs. So in textbooks, you can find many definitions for human capital. So according to Armstrong, human capital consists of knowledge, skills and abilities of people employed in an organization. Now you might have a question. So human resource management and human capital management, both are just the same. But here what you have to understand is that human capital management is different from conventional human resource management. So in the future slides, we'll discuss this difference. Now here you can understand the further about the human capital management. HCM or human capital management is generally considered to be a more strategic way of managing an organization's people, with a great emphasis on measurement, efficiency and the creation of value. Here there's a small hint for you to understand the unique nature of human capital management. Compared with conventional human resource management, in human capital management always we measure the contribution, the value of human resources. So therefore, the measurement is there in human capital management. The second one, efficiency. Human capital management focuses on enhancing human efficiency and the creation of value. So these are the major components that we focus on. In the human capital management, these are the main focus areas. Now here there's a small explanation for you to understand the difference between HRM and human capital management. So left side you can see human capital management focuses on maximizing employees' economic value. However, human resource management focuses on developing and maintaining systems and processes that enable employees to perform their roles effectively. So therefore, human resource management is the process we follow in managing people. So throughout the human resource management lessons, the previous courses, I'm sure you have learned the process from job analysis to retirement of employees, the process the organizations follow. So this is the human resource management. But human capital management always focuses on enhancing the economic value of people. So this slide further explains this difference, human resources and human capital. So human resources, you can see first bullet point, human resources primarily refer to the personnel or workforce. Simply, human resources represent people in the organization. But in human capital management, we don't care much about the head count, the number of people. We look into collective knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences possessed by the organization. How much the knowledge, skills, abilities, expertise we have in the organization is the human capital. And the second bullet point, you can see HRing encompasses the management of people-related functions. So it's a process. As I told you, from job analysis to retirement, there's a particular process we follow. For example, recruitment. Recruitment, we follow certain process. In recruitment, say for example, identification of vacant positions, and relevant department make a request to HR, and then HR initiate a recruitment process, place a advertisement, and then people apply for the jobs, vacant positions, and then shortlist the applications. So it's a process. This process is the HR focus. But human capital management emphasizes the value that employees bring to the organization. So therefore, human capital always focuses on creation, enhancing of value of people. And last bullet point, you can see left side under human resources, HR activities often focus on administrative tasks, compliance with labor laws, and addressing employee needs and concerns. So this is the conventional HR. But managing human capital involves strategic initiatives to attract, develop, retain, and motivate people. It has a strategic focus. For example, when you recruit in conventional, traditional HR, we follow the process. But if you have a human capital approach in the recruitment, you look into strategic plan of the business and what are the skills required to support the strategic plan. For those required skills, we attract people. So therefore, there's a strategic focus in human capital management. So main components of constituents of human capital: intellectual capital, social capital, and organizational capital. So these are the main components of human capital. Any individual, any employee possess these components: intellectual skills, and then social capital, that means how much the person can survive in the environment, social environment, positive relations, emotional intelligence, building relations with internal and external parties. All these skills come under social capital. And then organizational capital, that means any organization has a recorded knowledge. This doesn't mean the value of the investment invested by owners. Organizational capital means recorded knowledge in the organization. So here you can understand with these further details about intellectual capital, the stocks and flows of knowledge available to an organization is the intellectual capital. How much people has knowledge, which is called intellectual capital. Social capital. If your people are good at maintaining positive relations, if they are emotionally intelligent, they maintain positive relations with internal and external parties. If they have good networking skills, that's a part. That's one component of human capital, which is called social capital. Networks of relationships within and outside the organization. If your people are social, emotionally intelligent, maintain positive relations, such people contribute to the human capital. And organizational capital is the institutionalized knowledge. That means now the knowledge is in the minds of people, but some knowledge components are recorded in the organization. That may be documented in some records or computer files. That is called organizational capital. That's not monetary value invested by investors. Recorded knowledge in the organization. So therefore, last bullet point, you can see this is the knowledge that organization actually owns. This is a separate area in strategic management, which is called knowledge management. Acquisition of knowledge, recording of knowledge, distribution of knowledge for decision-making purpose. So therefore, knowledge is the organizational capital. So the parts or components of human capital, when you broadly analyze different parts of human capital, you can see some other components also, like knowledge, skills, part of human capital, people abilities, experience, education, values and attitudes. Now, for example, if your people are having good positive attitudes, it's a good capital. If they don't have positive attitudes, so it's a negative effect on human capital. So therefore, values and attitudes. If you have a group of people who are motivated, so part of human capital. Social capital, as we explained, discussed earlier. Emotional intelligence, health and well-being. If you have a healthy people, if you have a group of healthy people, if you have a group of the people with mental health, good mental health. So therefore, all these constituents make up the human capital. Here you can see human capital management, some definitions for human capital management. Human capital management involves the systematic analysis, measurement and evaluation of how people, policies and practices create value. So therefore, human capital management is a process of analyzing, measuring and evaluation of people policies, HR policies and practices, and making an assessment how much those policies and practices create value in the organization, increase value of the organization. So therefore, human capital management is the use of metrics to guide an approach to managing people. Always we use matrices to make decisions about people. For example, in recruitment, if the recruitment cycle is for a particular organization, say 3 months, that means from the point of arising a vacancy to the point of filling the vacancy, say if it takes 3 months, if you know that information, you can take some other measures to reduce that recruitment cycle. So therefore, human capital management is the use of metrics, statistics, data to guide an approach to managing people. So therefore today, the workplaces you can see human resource management is done with the human capital management approach. That's how you learn human resource analytics. Based on the human resource data, HR professionals and the managers make decisions. The second bullet point, human capital management relates to HR strategy, to business strategy. So therefore, human capital management relates HR strategy with business strategy. So why we have a human capital management focus? There are some aims of human capital management. The first aim is to determine the impact of people on the business. In general terms, somebody might question HR department, what's your contribution to our company? Then you have to prove with some data how much you contribute to create value, how much you contribute to earn profits of the business. So therefore, we need human capital to determine the impact of people on the business. Now, for example, you can have a very simple formula like for a particular year, total profit is divided by average employees of that particular year, and you can calculate per employee profit. Second year also you can do the same calculation, net profit divided by average employees of the year. You can calculate per employee profit. If there's an increase of per employee profit, so it's a good evidence that the increase of per employee profit because of better human capital management. So therefore, we need human capital management to measure or determine the impact of people on the business. Second aim, to demonstrate that HR practices produce value for money. So there should be some evidence to prove that HR practices produce value for money. In other words, return on investment. Now, for example, for recruitment, you invest 500,000 annually. Because of right recruitment decisions, you should get more return than 500,000. Then you can say your recruitment is more effective. So therefore, to demonstrate that HR practices produce value for money, we need human capital management approach. And the third aim, to provide guidance on future HR and business strategies. So human capital management always provide guidance on future HR and business strategies. As I told you earlier, say employee recruitment cycle is 3 months, then you can advise the company, next time please reduce it to 1 month. Otherwise what happens is the people apply for the open positions in our business, but later on during the recruitment cycle they join with other organizations. Therefore, as much as possible, we have to reduce the recruitment cycle and attract people and recruit suitable people within a short time. We can provide that kind of guidance to management if there's a human capital approach and if you record all the human capital management data. And the last aim, to provide data that will inform strategies. So this is a human capital management is a data-driven approach to human resource management. All the time we make HR decisions based on the data. For example, management advise you to organize a particular training program for a particular group of employees. Then you have to justify why training is required for that group. Is it because of customer complaints? If yes, how many customer complaints per year? Or how many customer complaints monthly companies getting from customers? There should be some data. And then after offering the training program, again you have to measure the number of customer complaints. That should be below the customer complaints that had before the training program, or that should come to 0 level. So therefore, human capital management always provide data that inform strategies and practices. So altogether, these are the aims of human capital management. How this concept developed as a result of human capital theory. Human capital theory is a very simple theory. We identify people as part of the organization's capital. Therefore, we should invest on people and we should focus on creation of value through people. That's the idea of human capital theory. Human capital theory helps to determine the impact of people on the business and their contribution to shareholder value. Therefore, as a theory, human capital theory determines the impact of people on business. Now I will explain you about human capital measurement. Why we measure human capital? Because the role of human capital measurement is to assess the impact of HRM practices and the contribution made by people to the organization. So to measure the impact of people made to the organization, definitely we have to measure human capital. So therefore, the one reason is to assess the impact of HRM practices on organization's performance. The second point, human capital measurement provides basis for people management decision making. So we need human capital data for making human capital decisions. Without data, we cannot make decisions. So therefore, human capital management provides human capital data for HR professionals for making their HR decisions. And this slide further explains the need for human capital measurement. People in organizations add value. So in order to see whether they add value, we need human capital measurement. The second point, focus attention on what needs to be done to make the best use of its human capital. That means to make HR human capital decisions, we need human capital measurement. Monitor progress in achieving strategic HR goals. Obviously, we need some HR or human capital data to monitor the progress of human capital management, whether there are any deviations or whether the human capital programs are on the right track. To monitor, we need human capital measurement. And human capital metrics are used to make human capital decisions, human capital management decisions. So what are the matrices? Here you can see examples for human capital matrices. For example, now here education, number of employees with degrees, diplomas and other certifications. If you have all these data about education of your employees, very easily you can make some decisions regarding their education level, their competencies. And the second one, training hours. So what's the average training hours of each employee per year? So that's also human capital data. And skills inventory, employee turnover rate, productivity metrics, and also employee engagement surveys. The companies conduct some surveys to see whether their employees' satisfaction is at a high level, their motivation level, and also their level of commitment. For that, organizations conduct employee engagement surveys. So this is also example for human capital data. Absenteeism rates, performance reviews. The companies conduct performance management or performance appraisals towards their employees, and then employee performance is evaluated based on some ratings or some evaluations. So such data provides information for us to make human capital decisions. And also career development opportunities. With respect to career development opportunities, number of promotions or advancements given to employees during a particular year. So it's a good source of information for us to make career development decisions. In the last couple of slides, I will explain how to see this difference in the sense difference between human resource management and human capital management when it applies to different human resource practice areas, policy areas. Here you can see training. So if there's a human capital management approach, training is given to employees to ensure employees develop competitive skills they can use to provide economic value to the company. So therefore in training programs, human resource professionals make sure to develop competitive skills required for implementing strategic plan of the organization. But if you have a conventional view towards people, which is human resource management, so our focus is different compared with human capital management. Use of learning management systems to properly track the kinds of training. So whether the training programs are successfully offered to employees, whether the employees completed training programs, whether employees have learned, achieved learning outcomes. So if you provide such information through the HRM system through the training system, that is the conventional training program. But as you see here, if there's a human capital management approach, the training programs make sure the developing competitive skills of our people. And finally, we make sure that people provide economic benefit to the company as a result of the training or skills they have developed. And with respect to recruitment, you can see the difference between human capital management and HRM. In human capital management, finding employees with skills the company needs to reach economic objectives. In other words, company has set of strategic goals. So what are the skills required for accomplishing those strategic goals? We have to identify in human capital management. And then in recruitment, we focus on those skills and competency requirements. But for recruitment, if there's a HRM, human resource management approach, the focus is on creating a streamlined recruiting process. So we make sure that there's a particular process, and whether the HR people and organizations, non-HR people follow this streamlined recruiting process as planned. That's what HR focus of recruitment. That helps the company find the best people for open roles. But human capital management orientation make sure that the company recruit people or find people with skills required for business needs to accomplish organizations' strategic objectives. So this is all about human capital management. So I'm sure you learn and you accomplish the intended learning outcomes. As you see here, you should be able to now define human capital management, discuss the nature of human capital and its aim, different elements of human capital. If you remember, we discussed about different components of human capital: intellectual capital, social capital, and organizational capital. And then human capital measurement, why it's important to measure human capital. And also we discussed some examples of human capital matrices. And then the human capital reporting of the organization, it is related to measurement. And also after measurement, we have to report for decision making purpose. And finally, implications of human capital management. If there's a human capital management approach to managing human resources, so what are the positive outcomes we can gain? The overall answer is that we can easily achieve our strategic business goals by facing the competition, gaining competitive advantage. That's all. Thank you.